Joining us in the studio live right now is Captain Alex Bade Jr., the Director General and CEO of the Nigeria Safety Investigation Bureau, NSIB. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you for having me this morning.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the National Safety Investigation Bureau. These regulatory details, these three of them, why was it necessary to come up with those three right now?
Again, like before you investigate any accident, there must be a playbook for it. This would be the playbook for any of these investigations, you know. I mean, it's things that weren't in these other segments, i.e. rail and maritime, you know, key things like notification times, you know, kinds of accidents that we need to get notified about, structured evidence protection, you know, who is in charge of this evidence or wreckage or a crime scene when these things happen. As you know, in Nigeria, there might be certain rules, but when there's an accident, it's the free-for-all. In aviation, it's always been a bit more structured, but, you know, with maritime, with rail, sometimes you have people there pilfering, picking up. You have multiple agencies jostling for who's in control.
How was it done before?
Well, in these other modes?
Well, because now the revised Civil Aviation Investigation of Air Accidents and Incidents Regulation draft, that's one.
Well, that one, I'll talk about that one.
Okay,
that's
and then
revised.
the Maritime Safety Investigation and Regulations draft, and the Railway Investigation of Accidents and Incidents Regulation draft. So these are the three that we heard from in that stakeholders engagement. Before these three that you've come, and you're asking people to weigh in. How was it done before?
Well, let's talk about the air. The air, the air regulations are already a thing. It's just we revised them. Again, there's always changes. So this is just slight revisions here and there, And of course, it's a draft because we asked the stakeholders to chime in and give us their thoughts on it. They've had these documents already prior to the unveiling at the workshop, but that's just a more wider audience. So again, that's almost a window dressing the way I see it, because they've already had these drafts and they've chimed in. So for the air, again, that's already its own thing. It's just an update to that. But for the rail and maritime, of course, we've not had any regulations around these accident investigations. So this is the first real comprehensive one from an agency that's mandated to investigate these things.
I mean, which is very interesting, especially the fact that we have a lot of boat accidents. We've been seeing a lot of those happening. We're even seeing state governments weighing in on them. In fact, I took my time to actually get down a lot of those recent boat accidents. 37 people died in 6 days.
37?
Yes.
I'm unaware.
37 people died in 6 based on the reports. And I'll give you the places: Zangon Maje in Jigawa, 9 people. Gasol local government area in Taraba, 3 people. Shiroro in Niger State, 25 people died in that one.
Well, Shiroro was 13 people, actually.
It was 13?
13 people that died in Shiroro.
13?
So sometimes, yes, 13, 1 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, with these situations, shocking that there wasn't a modus operandi really before. So with these situations right now, especially with these boat mishaps, how are these new regulations going to help with the investigations? And the president did say that these reports should be coming out faster. Yes.
Again, in aviation, you know, we got a prelim 30 days and usually the final in 12 months, unless they're extenuating circumstances. So with these maritime ones, most of the time you don't get any reports. And if there are no reports out there, people don't learn. Sometimes people know the causes. You know, like NIWA, who are the regulators, they do some investigation. The maritime police do some investigation. Remember, these people aren't trained in investigation, in the art of accident investigation, in reconstruction and all that. So with these regulations, most importantly, they set a guideline for collaboration. Because now we all have the same playbook to work by. We know who's responsible for what. There's a clear, you know, delineation of responsibilities, and it allows for collaboration between everybody. And then remember, with the NSIB, our investigations are non-punitive. So we're trying to create a just culture as well with these investigations, where people are not scared of being penalized for anything. Because we always hear, oh, who's going to get punished? And the NSIB's job is not to punish. It's to investigate and put these reports out there. So hopefully people learn and it doesn't reoccur again.
I mean, that's a very important point to make. It's not punitive, but you know how the Nigerian people are. We want to be able to hold somebody responsible when these sorts of things happen. So when people learn from the report, there's no
Yeah,
No,
unfortunately,
actual investigations that leads to arrests. We need to punish somebody.
well, that's a judicial process.
If
I
there's no
can't
link,
wait.
it doesn't. You don't
Well,
send your reports to the judiciary or to the police.
they're public. So if the police or the judiciary decides they want to go and punish someone, that we just investigate and put the facts out there,
Yeah.
as they may be.
Well, when it comes to air crashes, we've not had any crashes, but we've had a lot of near misses.
Yeah.
Skidding off the runway,
Yes.
you know, and things like that. These new rules, how is it going to help the situation? Because in many cases, are these things that could have been helped? There was one I was reading about where it was algae on the runway. That yes, it was a
The value jet, I think.
yes, at the value jet one. You know, so there's a lot of extenuating circumstances. How are these new regulations going to, you know, stop these near misses? Because even if we've not gotten the accident, we don't want an accident. So the near miss is a bit scary.
But regulations, again, like I say, they set a guidebook for everybody. More than anything, what's going to help is our safety recommendations. So after the investigation, the recommendations we'll put out is what helps these aviators, again, rail operators or, you know, boat operators not reoccur. Of course, when we put them out there, we expect that the regulators, i.e. the NCA for aviation, NIWA for inland waterways, NRC for the rail, and NIMASA for the high seas, we're expecting that they will take these safety recommendations and ensure that they're enforced. They're the ones who go there to enforce these things.
Yeah.
So,
when it comes to railways, I think one of the questions people had was the kind of security along.
Yeah, it's you know, it's unfortunately our country being the way it is. I mean, this was discussed last week. People steal off the tracks and all that. So it's, you know, there's a culture too here where we do things that we don't necessarily need to. You know, people pilfer, they take the metal to go smelt to do other things. So it's a whole culture, and hopefully, as you know, we educate. The NOA talks to people, the NRC talks to people. It's just to get us to get out of this mindset of pilfering these tracks, because it's very porous.
Yes.
All the way there, you know, little isolated stretches, people start to steal things, and these causes problems.
But quite shocking. The FCT minister, I think at some point he said it was time to start charging these people with economic sabotage as opposed to just giving them warnings and things like that. You know, before I talked to my colleague in Lagos, there's been talk about the NSIB leaving the Ministry of Aviation and moving to the SGO's office.
That's beyond my pay grade. I don't know anything of that sort. We work wherever we are, and we're working very well in the Ministry of Aviation. So, again, we're, you know, I politician. I was appointed to a job, and I do my job.
It doesn't matter. Aviation, the job.
Be done.
All right, let me toss you to my colleague in Lagos. Ayo has a few. Go ahead, Ayo.
Thank you, Kayla. Perhaps one place I'd like to begin with you, Captain, is whether or not you think we have enough infrastructure in place to prevent these accidents. I think that's one place I'd like us to begin the conversation. Do you think we have enough parameters, structures, infrastructure to prevent some of the accidents that you have to investigate?
It is, yes. Infrastructure, we all know there's an infrastructure deficit in Nigeria. I mean, this infrastructure is not cheap. You know, these things cost a lot of money. I mean, I could go to rail. If you compare us to, say, America or Europe, they've had their rail structures for hundreds of years, and some of it was built on slave labor. Right now, the cost of doing those things is astronomical because you must pay people a living wage. So I wouldn't say we have the infrastructure, but parameters, yeah, the parameters are the human, you know, the human factor in there, the training. You know, we do have the people here. We're training more and more people, and we're doing more sensitization at the NSIB for all of this. So the parameters are there, human-wise. But infrastructure, I'll say there's an infrastructure gap just everywhere in Nigeria, or a deficit everywhere in Nigeria.
Also underscores, Captain, they need to look at some other angles to it, and here is what I mean. I've had to, on this program, ask former Minister of I think Aviation, Like, look, you are creating infrastructure, you are building airports, you are upgrading this, you are upgrading that. I think, okay, I think it was Minister of Transport. You're doing this, you're doing that. And you're doing this after so many decades. Just as you said, there's this deficit because we haven't really maintained them well enough over time. Now, another one is about to go on at the airports in Lagos. And I know that you know that there's been quite some revamp, particularly around the rail lines all over the country. Now, in terms of, because the concern for me is the prevention. Because if we are able to create enough, whatever it is we need to prevent these things, we'll have minimal loss of lives, minimal loss of infrastructure, minimal loss of property. So can you speak to not just the infrastructure gap, but the deficit we have in prevention of these dilapidations and the maintenance culture that we have? What are the gaps we have, particularly in the area of maintenance, to ensure we don't get to this point of talking about infrastructure gap over the next 30, 40 years again? 40 years again.
See, maintenance culture, it cuts across all facets of, I think, the Nigerian society. You know, we tend to have this habit of, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. You know, we don't have a sense of urgency to fix these things here because, you know, there's always one excuse or the other. And, of course, timely, which is why we're at the NSIB, we talk about timely release of these safety recommendations and reports. That's one way to go about it. Again, I always talk about sensitization and collaboration. You know, people need to be sensitized. The users of this infrastructure need to be sensitized. Even the people, National Assembly, everybody needs to be sensitized with the cost of all these things. Because a lot of these things come at a huge cost because we're a net importer of a lot of things. We don't manufacture these things here. So even with the airports, with the discourse around the cost of the upgrade of that infrastructure, airports are a big business. They cost a lot of money. And of course, you know, just the value of our currency, you know, we see these big billions and, you know, there's, you know, that apprehension, you know, correctly or incorrectly, but it just does not change the fact that these things need to be done. And like you said, you know, we need to change our culture. You know, our culture needs to change, you know, with maintenance and all these things, because these infrastructure belongs to all of us. So even the average Nigerian who sees something going wrong should speak up. If you see something, say something. Don't just see things happening and, you know, just keep quiet. I'm glad for social media right now where, you know, people record things and point out because it points to, you know, these issues, and hopefully everybody involved can investigate and look at the root causes for this, you know, dilapidation to our infrastructure. But again, it's not just on the NSIB's part. It's all of us as a collective, as citizens in the country.
I'm hoping that, Captain, that you'll be able to speak to at least what things that we need to do. I mean, you've spoken to the infrastructure upgrade at the airports, for instance. Let's take that instance. Former President Obasanjo, when he returned in 1999, lamented the fact that 20 years before he came back in 1999, he handed over a federal government with 20 aircrafts under a Nigeria Airways company. And he came back 20 years after, they're all gone. Speaks to what you just said. Poverty of a culture of maintenance. So now we're going to spend almost, I don't know, ₦1 trillion to revamp or upgrade these airports as well. If you could advise, or if you would counsel, if you had the authority, what safety measures would you recommend, or what maintenance culture would you recommend be infused into this upgrade? And what punitive measures would you also recommend that can help us to align in terms of maintaining a culture of maintenance so that we don't, again, come back to where we are?
Again, I'm not a punitive person, so I will not discuss punitive measures, as that's not, you know, my trade. You know, but safety, of course, you know, I would use the aviator in me. You know, we have safety management systems in aviation. You have continuous maintenance action plans, or action maintenance plans as well in aviation. So it's the same thing with all these things. It's a continuous process. There should be a plan, continuous action maintenance plan for this infrastructure. Safety management systems, again, just putting things in place. It's all about systems. And like I say, collaboration is people. Because it's all human beings at the end of the day. So as long as you train them and you infuse that culture in them every day, you know, it's all training. This is all training. You know, sometimes people think training or mandatory training is just a bore. It's an avenue to go collect government money. That's not what it is. You actually go and learn. And the world keeps changing. Conferences, workshops. Surprisingly, you go learn new things every day. So you run an airport there, airport workshops and conferences all over the world. So people that run these infrastructure should be exposed to all these things, you know, regularly. And like I said, again, safety management systems in the airport and just the continuous action to maintain this thing. Yeah.
I think that's a very important point. The fact that this is something that has to continue.
It needs to continue. Yes.
So as we wrap up, just your well, you're not punitive at all. Yeah. So, but talk to the people in these sectors and why the maintenance culture we have to be able to preserve what it is that we have, so we don't spend money on things that we could have prevented from being spoiled. Yeah. So could you talk to them as the head of the NSIB and what they should be having at the back of their minds when they see these government infrastructure, especially when it comes to our transport systems? Well,
first thing I'll say, it's their money. It's the taxpayer money. So if you let your own money go, it's like your own house. You know, you live there. Just because you don't live there every day, it is your resource. It's a collective resource of the people. So you see something going wrong, speak up, try to maintain it, try to keep it. Like I say, I talk about collaborative, just culture. It should be, that's why I try to be non-punitive, or we say we're non-punitive. It's a just culture. It should be, people should be able to speak up. Even when they make a mistake, they should say, hey, I made a mistake here, and it shouldn't be, why did you do this, or you're no good. It's okay, you made a mistake, let's see how we can remedy this and prevent it from happening.
Thank you so much, Captain Alex Bade Jr., DG, CEO of Nigeria's Safety Investigation Bureau, for being with us this morning and for all of your insights. Good luck with all the engagements you have ahead of you.
Thank you for having me.
And that is Sunrise Daily this morning. For now, this is us saying goodbye. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Kayla Megwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And I'm Ayo Makide. Have a good one.